One unexpected moment from Donald Trump changed everything for Karoline Leavitt, the 27-year-old White House press secretary. A young woman constantly mocked for her age, she had fought endlessly to prove herself. Critics questioned her qualifications, and many rooms she entered seemed filled with doubt. But in a surprise twist on live TV, President Trump mentioned her by name, and that changed the narrative. Why did he choose her? What followed silenced even her toughest skeptics. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe so you never miss powerful moments like this. That morning in D.C. was dull and heavy. The sky was a monotone gray, like a screen on standby. In a tucked-away office, Karoline sat with her sneakers resting on an open drawer, a pile of dry tax policy documents in front of her. Her red hoodie boldly read, "Truth First." Her hair was messy, a pencil jammed behind one ear. Across the room, her chief of staff, Emma, typed away with earbuds in, focused on preparing materials for the upcoming press briefings. Karoline muttered as she flipped through the papers. Who misspells revenue in a federal file? Billions at stake and they can't spell money? She laughed quietly, hoping to draw a smirk from Emma. But Emma had stopped typing. Frozen, her eyes fixed on the screen in front of her. She slowly removed an earbud and whispered, "Turn on Fox News. Now." Karoline immediately straightened. Her pulse quickened, that all-too-familiar surge she felt before facing the press. She grabbed the remote and turned on the corner TV. It wasn't an old clip. It was Trump. Live. Speaking from the East Room, flanked by the U.S. flag and the White House seal. The moment hit when he paused mid-speech and said, "I'm telling you, Karoline Leavitt is someone America needs to remember." Emma moved toward her with trembling hands. Karoline's breath caught. The pencil slipped from her grasp. The room fell silent. Her name, on live TV, from the president himself. Emma covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Trump continued. "She shows the country that loyalty isn't handed out. You fight for it, especially when fake news attacks daily." Karoline blinked. Her vision blurred, not with tears, but sheer disbelief. On screen, images rolled of her, confidently at press briefings, challenging reporters, leading youth activists. Her heart thundered. "I didn't expect him to say my name," she whispered, her voice raw. She laughed softly. "I know he's busy, knows a lot of people, but I never thought he'd remember me." She instinctively touched a necklace, under her hoodie, a star pendant her mother had given her. That gift had been her anchor through tough moments like this. She suddenly remembered her mother's words. "You don't need a spotlight to lead. Just remember who you're fighting for." The president's praise felt like validation of that lesson. She hadn't sought fame, yet somehow the nation had seen her. Trump's 8 words carried massive weight. News channels looped the clip, 42 times by noon. Bold headlines read, "Karoline Leavitt, Trump's star." Commentators buzzed, social media exploded. Clips, edits, tributes, even memes. On TikTok, videos of her confronting tough questions and walking into press rooms gained millions of views. But Karoline said nothing. No post, no speech. Just pinned a screenshot on the office bulletin board with a handwritten note. "Loyalty doesn't need noise." Critics were swift. MSNBC hosts mocked her, laughing at her emotional reaction. One sneered, "This is leadership now?" Another added, "Imagine her in a real crisis." But the backlash was cut short by a surprise call from a woman veteran. Her voice pierced the noise. "We've waited decades to hear words like that. That's not weakness, that's release." The host had no comeback. Karoline watched the TV quietly. It wasn't just about her. It was about every young person who was ever told they were too green, every staffer who believed in something bigger. She remembered her first encounter with Trump as an intern. He'd said, "You've got potential, don't let them shake you." This wasn't just a mention, it was a torch. And she knew she had to carry it forward. News outlets scrambled to explain. Was it planned? Was she tipped off? But the official White House statement said simply, "The mention was not prepared. The president spoke from the heart." That stunned journalists. In a world driven by spin and scripting, something authentic had cut through. Op-eds poured in. She wasn't in the room, but he brought the room to her. Commentators noted how rare it was to see a young woman publicly praised with no qualifiers. No but, no despite. Just truth. Teenagers made tribute edits. Veterans watched with pride. It wasn't just about Karoline anymore. It was about belief. It was about the voice of a generation. And it all started with 8 words that rewrote her story. And maybe a bit of American history too. Everyone sensed something rare was unfolding, something real. When the microphone clicked off and the final reporter stepped back, Karoline turned and quietly walked into the building, leaving the cameras fixed on an empty podium. Inside, the hallway was silent. Emma stood outside the office door, waiting, holding something close. There were no words exchanged at first. None were necessary. Emma stepped forward and embraced Karoline tightly, an unspoken comfort between them. Then Emma slowly handed over an old notebook. Its cover was faded, its corners soft and worn with age. Karoline glanced down and immediately recognized the handwriting. It was her mother's. She opened to the first page, reading the neat blue ink. "Make them see what they missed." Karoline didn't cry. She didn't have to. She simply nodded once, closed the notebook, and pressed it to her chest like a flame being passed on. Everything had started with chalk. On a cracked sidewalk in suburban Columbus, Ohio, someone had scrawled "Karoline was here" in bright pink. Underneath, a stick figure with a speech bubble read, "We matter too." A week later, a huge mural appeared on a community center's wall, painted by teens who skipped lunch to finish it. The mural depicted Karoline in her navy blazer and white sneakers, one hand holding a mic, the other raising an American flag. Days later, a smaller version popped up in Tucson, Arizona, showing her hugging a veteran beneath the words, "Strength. Looks like this." No one asked for authorization. No one waited for approval or budget. The community didn't need anyone's permission to celebrate their own. Kids added capes to the murals. Her initials appeared on food trucks with stars drawn around her face like a local legend. In Michigan barbershops, her speech was framed in black and white and placed beside photos of Trump and Reagan. A barber in Nashville renamed his shop. Leavitt's line saying, "She speaks truth, sharp and bold, like my cuts." There was joy in this, quiet but defiant. It was the people saying, "We see you, Karoline. We choose you." This wasn't just politics anymore. It was kinship. It was representation. A young woman speaking with the voice of their sisters, standing firm like their mothers, unbreakable when history tried to bend her. Among the flood of fan letters, emails, and hand-drawn cards taped to her office door, one stood out. It came. In a plain manila envelope, no return address, the handwriting pressed into creased paper. "Dear Miss Leavitt," it began. "I saw you during that press briefing when you talked about people struggling under taxes. I hadn't voted in 10 years, not because I didn't care, but because I believed no one cared about me. But that day, something in me shifted. The letter was from Sarah, a former factory worker from Indiana who'd lost her job during the pandemic. She now hosted weekly food drives from her own home. I gather 12 women every week. We call ourselves the Leavitt League. We don't have much, but it's enough to make change. Karoline read it late in her office, under the glow of a desk lamp, hallway silent. She didn't cry, but she closed her eyes and held the letter like a lifeline, because this wasn't just admiration. It was momentum. Sarah didn't only believe in Karoline, she'd begun to believe in herself. And that's where real leadership begins, when it spreads, when belief becomes action. A shift no poll can track, no headline fully capture, because it happens quietly in kitchens and basements, around folding chairs and lukewarm coffee, whispered between women saying, "We can do this too." A few states away, in suburban Atlanta, a 10-year-old boy named Ethan was digging up hard soil with a bent spoon and a broken rake. He called it Karoline's garden, a patch of dirt behind his apartment building once littered with soda cans and cigarette butts. He had watched her speech with his father, who'd said, "She talks like she knows us." The next day, Ethan found an old packet of seeds, borrowed tools from a neighbor, and started clearing the lot. He didn't ask for help. He didn't wait for permission. He simply planted. Weeks later, his father mailed a photo to Karoline's office, Ethan standing beside 3 tomato plants and a sign made from a pizza box. "We don't need candy. We need chances." The photo spread online just like her speech had. People from all over sent gardening supplies. Schools offered him more space to grow. Karoline framed the photo and placed it next to her mother's notebook on her desk. Whenever someone asked what drove her, she'd glance at the photo and say, "Because kids like Ethan aren't waiting for the future. They're building it now." The sunlight in Concord, New Hampshire felt different from Washington, D.C. Warmer, gentler, more sincere. Karoline hadn't returned to her hometown school since graduation. The building had changed in some ways, new security cameras, but the same old playground slide still bore the crack from when she fell in 3rd grade. As she stepped from the black SUV, children in oversized and too tight uniforms leaned out the windows, cheering, chanting her name like a celebrity. "Karoline! Karoline!" One girl stood on a desk and saluted. Karoline smiled, eyes glistening, as she shook hands with teachers she knew and new ones she didn't. She passed old lockers, dusty trophies, and a faded class photo. Her younger self, with hair pulled back, hands in her lap, already bracing for a world that wouldn't be gentle. But when she entered the cafeteria, the nostalgia cracked. The smell hadn't changed. Processed cheese, industrial bleach, and something faintly scorched. A kitchen worker jokingly handed her a tray. She smiled, until she saw the milk carton. Same brand, expired by 3 days. Her smile faded. The cameras didn't catch it, but Emma did, arms crossed, silently watching. Karoline set the carton down softly, voice nearly a whisper. "Why are they still using this?" No one answered. The silence was louder than words. Later in the principal's office, he adjusted his tie nervously for a photo, hands trembling. When the photographer left, he sat across from her. "There's something I've wanted to say," he confessed. "We didn't believe someone from here could go as far as you. We're proud, but I owe you an apology. I'm sorry we didn't treat you like you deserved." Karoline's voice was calm. "What do you mean?" "You were smart, full of passion, but we told you to be quiet, sit still. We missed what you were trying to give." He looked ashamed. Karoline didn't reply immediately, just nodded. Not in anger, but in weary understanding. She wasn't upset with him. She was tired of a system that sees fire as trouble instead of potential. "If I could go back," he said softly, I'd give you the front row and a mic. She leaned forward, tapped his pen. Save that for the ones still here. It's not too late for them. No more needed to be said. Because redemption isn't about rewriting history, it's about refusing to repeat it.